Hi, my name is Vinny Terranova, and I'm in Level 2, Marchman Technical College. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to wire an air handler. Wearing my safety glasses, because that's what's required at this school, okay? And obviously you want to protect your eyes. You can't see, you can't work. This is typically how the air handler comes, you know, top panel, bottom panel. For demonstration purposes, it's obviously not screwed in. So I'm going to take that off, put it to the side. These are your two thermostat wires, okay? So again, for demonstration purposes, it's not connected, but one's coming from the thermostat and the other one's coming from your outdoor unit, also known as your condensing unit, okay? And we're gonna wire this air handler. Let me get my wire strippers here. Take the protective sheathing off, roll that up so it's nice, cut the excess. You're also gonna take this off. And you want to make it maybe about up to here. You want to make it about the same length because that helps with the wiring. If it's different lengths, the wires are like all weird. All right, so what I'm going to do first is the outdoor condensing unit. Okay, the outdoor condensing unit doesn't need three particular wires. It doesn't need the green wire, which controls the fan inside the air handler, and black and brown we just don't use. Okay, so because of that, and just so I remember which one it is, rolling it up. This is your wire coming from the thermostat, and the only two wires we don't use is brown and black. So I'm gonna roll this up so I know that this is the particular wire. So after that, we're gonna strip these. Now each color there's a reason, okay? So the orange wire controls your reversing valve if the system is actually a heat pump system. The blue wire is your common wire, which closes the circuit. Your green wire controls the blower fan motor that's inside the air handler. Your white wire controls the heat strips inside the air handler. The red wire is your 24 volts, which actually gives the thermostat the voltage it needs to send power throughout to every single other wire. And this controls the cooling part of it. So when this is activated, AC turns on from the outdoor unit, okay? This is your field installed wiring. This is the wiring that's already inside the air handler, okay? So before I get to the field installed wiring, there's a couple wires that don't need to be installed inside the air handler, which is your cooling wire. So I take a wire nut, wire that together, make sure it's nice and tight so it doesn't come loose. Okay. The next one is your reversing valve, which is your orange wire. Next one I'm going to do is the green, which again controls the fan, also known as the blower motor, inside the air handler. So next wire I'm going to wire up is the white wire, which again controls the heat strips. Now think of the heat strips as a toaster oven, how hot those coils get. When the heat pump is activated, when the temperature is below about 34 or 35 degrees, it doesn't make it as efficient. So to help compensate for that, the heat strips turn on behind here to blow hot air out of your supply vent, okay? So again, this is your return vent. That's sucking in the air. Also, the heat of the home is coming through the coil, right, which is really cold, the coil is absorbing the heat. That's how the refrigeration cycle is. That's what the blower, so it's sucking up, and it's now if it's in heat mode, it passes over your heat strips, which blows out hot air. If it's in cooling mode, it's going to pass over the coil and obviously blow cold air. Okay. Now again, the purpose of having an AC system is not blowing cold air into the house. It actually is taking heat from the home. So if you ever put your hand over the fan outside in the condensing unit and you feel that heat, that's actually heat from your home. So it's actually a great process. So we're gonna wire both white to the field installed wiring, which is connected to the heat strips inside. So we're gonna wire that up. Okay. Now we're gonna wire the blue wire, which I told you earlier is your common wire. That's the wire that completes the circuit with the flow of electricity. The license that this falls under is mechanical contracting. Electricians fall under electrical contracting. However, 90% of your AC is wiring. It's all wires and components that use electricity. It's just the way it is. Okay. The next one is your 24 volts. The reason why it's 24 volts, it gets high voltage from the electrical panel, which is about 220 to 240, okay? It goes to a transformer, which is a step-down transformer, which steps down the high voltage to a low voltage of 24 volts, which powers the components inside, okay, of the air handler, and also the components that are in the outdoor condensing unit, okay? So this is your red wire coming off the transformer inside the air handler. So this is me giving the thermostat 24 volts, okay? So before I do that, I want to show you, which is code of what we also have to wire, which is called the safety float. Now, as you know, condensation is created by heat going to something cold. It's going to create condensation. These coils produce about 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons of water. The water needs somewhere to go. So instead of flooding your house, it's going to go through a primary drain line, which is right here, okay? Sometimes these get clogged or backed up with algae. It could be any reason why, okay? So we have a secondary float, all right? So that secondary float is connected to something like this, which is called a float switch. When water starts creeping up, it's gonna start creeping up this float, and once it goes to a certain point, it's gonna break power, okay? So these two wires are pretty much right here, okay? So one side goes to the transformer of 24 volts, the other side goes to both wires from the outdoor unit and the condensing unit. So once that breaks, it's stopping the 24 volts to your thermostat. And if there's no batteries in your thermostat goes blank because of the float switch. It's very important. I've seen in the field, I've seen a lot of homes with their ceilings in water because they didn't have a float switch because it's an older system. All new systems have to have that because, again, it's code, okay? So again, one side goes to the wire coming off the transformer, which is the 24 volts. It varies. Sometimes we say 24 volts, but in reality it's like 27. But again, when you're in the field, you'll start realizing that. All right, and then the other side of the float goes to both red wires on the stat wires. And that's pretty much how you wire an air handler. Well, this particular air handler, obviously, every manufacturer is different with wire colors, and sometimes they have a board that we actually have to screw in. But after you're done, you just put the air handler back. Now, as you know, electricity is not something that you want to get shocked with. So during this, I shut off what they call a disconnect. Sometimes there's a breaker right here that you can pull down, but you don't want to wire anything when it has active electricity. You want to make sure there's no active electricity flowing through those wires.